We have a major update in the case against the former beauty queen cheerleader accused of giving birth in her off-campus house and hiding her newborn's body in a trash bag in a closet. Laken Snelling reportedly told doctors that her baby may have been alive when he was born, and we'll take a look at what that means for her case. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Stewart. So much of the case against Laken Snelling will hinge on her baby boy's cause of death and whether he was alive when he was born and what she did in the moments after he was born. Here's video of the former University of Kentucky cheerleader in court last week where her attorney waived her preliminary hearing. Right now, this case is not a murder case. Snelling is facing 3 charges: abuse of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and concealing the birth of an infant. She has pleaded not guilty. She's out on bond and she's living with her parents. But newly released court documents to the University of Kentucky student newspaper reveal what Snelling allegedly told doctors after she gave birth, and it fills in a lot of the gaps of the alleged timeline of what went down inside her home and where she went after. Now, according to the Kentucky Colonel newspaper, Snelling told doctors that her baby displayed, quote, a little bit of fetal movement, and the baby boy made a, quote, whimper. The baby was also believed to be a full-term boy. What we also learned in this report is what Snelling told police allegedly after she gave birth and how it could factor into the evidence that prosecutors have against her. Now, before I get to that part of it and where she went allegedly after giving birth, let's go back to when this began and the timeline that we know about at this point. August 27th, Lexington, Kentucky police were called to her house for a report of an unresponsive infant. The child was pronounced dead on scene. Now, they say the baby was found in a closet. There's an arrest citation that says the infant was wrapped in a towel inside of a black trash bag. The citation reportedly says that Snelling was read her rights and she allegedly admitted to giving birth to that baby. Then she allegedly said that she concealed the birth by cleaning evidence and putting all cleaning items inside of a black trash bag along with the body of that infant wrapped in a towel. Now, the newly released court documents to the Kentucky Colonel reveal that Snelling told police that she gave birth around 4 o'clock in the morning, and she told officers that she did not think that the baby was breathing or alive. She also said that she was awake for about a half hour after giving birth, then fell asleep on top of the baby. And when she woke up, she said that baby had turned blue and purple. She reportedly said that she didn't think the baby was alive. She then said that she wrapped the baby and laid next to the child in a moment of what they say was a moment of comfort. Now, this is all per those new court documents released to the Kentucky student newspaper. She then said when she woke up for class, Snelling allegedly wrapped the baby in a towel, then put it in a trash bag and placed that bag in the closet. She also reportedly cleaned up blood in her room with paper towels and put the placenta in a Ziploc bag that then also went into the trash bag. So it appears that is some evidence that law enforcement has. Now, even though she just went through this major medical event and her son was dead, Snelling reportedly left the house to go to class. But she says she actually didn't end up going to class, but she sat in her car. She wasn't feeling well, so she ordered McDonald's through the McDonald's app. Now, while all of this was happening, there also appears to have been multiple roommates in her home. Now, according to these court documents, around the time that Snelling reportedly said that she gave birth about 4 o'clock in the morning, one of her roommates had texted a Snapchat group saying they thought they heard something fall. There was another roommate who said that they heard the same thing and believed they heard noises for roughly an hour. Now, after Snelling left for class, her roommates went into her room. It appears that Snelling never told them that she was pregnant, but they were suspicious. And when they entered that room, they allegedly found a blood-soaked towel, a plastic bag containing evidence of childbirth. They also found the body of that baby boy. And that is when they called police, and Snelling was later arrested. Now, digital footprint that Laken Snelling allegedly left behind may also be very key in this case going forward, because it appears that police have images of Snelling during labor that she took, that they were able to get through a search warrant, but they were images that she deleted, which, if true, would be key evidence in terms of the charge she is facing for trying to cover up this childbirth. Now, publicly, we know Snelling, she appeared to be very active on social media, as so many young college students are, up until the spring when she stopped posting pictures of herself. And remember, now it is believed that this child was full term. Now, another shocking part of this is that it appears that Snelling publicly, that she had really presented herself as someone who had aspirations to one day be a mom. Here's the last post that she had on her TikTok, which is from June. It is a picture with emojis that describe her, and you can see in the bottom left, there's one there that says goals, with the emoji of a mom with a child. Now, another big question still unanswered at the time of this recording: who's the father of this baby boy? We still don't know. We do know that one of her ex-boyfriends submitted DNA to police, and she was also reportedly in a relationship more recently with another man, and it's unclear what their relationship status is right now and what type of cooperation law enforcement is getting from potential partners of Laken Snelling. Now, Snelling is no longer a student at the University of Kentucky. She withdrew following her arrest in September. She also used to be a member of the Wildcats stunt cheerleading team. You can take a look at her picture that was up on the University of Kentucky Athletics website. This is a video of Snelling competing with the team in a video posted just 4 months ago per Flow Cheer on YouTube. So it is possible that Snelling was pregnant during this event. Snelling reportedly had supporters in the courtroom with her during her appearance last week, where her defense attorney has waived her preliminary hearing. She has pleaded not guilty to the charges. I want to take a moment and pause from this episode of On the Case and bring you a Law and Crime legal alert, because there are allegations claiming that online apps, DraftKings and FanDuel, are engineered for addiction. These multi-billion-dollar companies allegedly continue to put profit over safety. Every free bet, every boosted parlay, and every small payout triggers a dopamine rush that creates dependency and turns harmless fun into a detrimental habit. They keep you hooked, chasing impossible wins, and they trap you in a cycle that can lead to significant financial loss and ultimately damage mental health. Our legal sponsors are taking on the online gambling industry to potentially get compensation for all of those who have been impacted. So if you or a loved one have suffered addiction, financial hardship, or mental health issues due to sports betting apps, visit gamblinglawsuit.com/OTC to take a short quiz and check your eligibility to file a claim. Joining us now to talk a little bit more about this is retired NYPD Detective David Sarney. It's always great to have you with us on Law and Crime. And I know we've talked about this case a little bit, and we've been waiting for more information to come out. The fact that this baby, according to Laken Snelling in these articles, we don't know the cause of death from the ME's office as of yet, but she said the baby whimpered and showed some movement after being born. How does that factor into this criminal case?
Well, thank you for having me, but that's very big now, because when they made the arrest, at the initial arrest, they can go only based on the information they have. So it takes a little time to get all of this. So when they did the interview of the doctors and they find out that, she told them something that wasn't told to them, they also have to do the research on that, because you just want to make sure that isn't just hearsay. It's just, it was mistaken, a heard mistake. So people don't say, I didn't hear it right. But this one, if that baby was alive when she had birth, when she said that the baby wasn't, the prosecutor now can look at maybe upping the charges to either criminally negligent homicide or murder at this point.
Yeah, and there'll be a big part of it. Because I know the initial autopsy, they were unsure how the baby died, and then that's something that's still taking some time to figure out. But there is that difference, because in reading this article about these documents, to police it was the baby, she said the baby was dead, but then it's like she's talking to doctors and it seems like there was actually some movement. When it comes to the difference between manslaughter and a murder case, what is that bar and the difference that has to be found in the investigation?
Well, with New York, it would be the intent. What's the intent? And you'll have they would call them the culpable mental state. Was this intentional? Was this reckless? Was this criminally negligent? Or, in this case, she went from disposing a body that she said was dead. But even based on her statements, it's not really sure, because the baby was bluish in color, and then she just thought he was dead. So that's another thing into itself. So now, with that story that she gave to the doctors, now that baby might have been alive, because the whole idea of her passing out and waking up and the baby is dead, that's her side of it, and they're going to have to refute that with and that comes back to the ME's office. But feeling and seeing the fact that this baby, she's saying, was alive and moving to an extent, however movement the baby had, she's admitting to that. Now, does that become negligent on her part without getting that baby to a doctor, calling 911, doing something? Because it's no longer a stillborn baby. Like we've had these. That's why when we talk about cuppies in New York State, New York City particularly, circumstances unknown pending police investigation. This is a cuppy, but the more you engage in this investigation, you're finding out there is more to it. And was she reckless? Was she negligent? And right now, based on what you're saying, she looks negligent. Again, this is all like allegations, but she looks negligent in the fact that she did not render aid to the baby when the baby was born at any time. And then her excuse is she fell asleep or she passed out from the pain. And I've not had children, so I can't say that's accurate or not.
Well, and it's also too, though, she wakes up, these court documents lay out, I mean, several hours of, and gosh, she goes through this medical experience. I'm not a doctor, but I mean, she's lucky that she didn't, lose an amount of blood or anything like that, where like she could have died, in some cases without having any medical people around her to help. But then she gets up hours later and she decides that she's going to go to class, and she doesn't end up going, but she's in the car and then she's not feeling well. So she orders some McDonald's. How does so if she had fallen asleep, she wakes up, and she leaves to go to class, not going even to, and I think she had looked at going to a clinic, but didn't end up doing that. I mean, but just the fact that her intent was to go back to regular life, what does that mean as you're building a case?
Well, that's beneficial too, because she just disposes the body. She prepares to get rid of the body and just has no problem leaving. That's what you have to look at. And this is where the defense will say she was not of the right mind at the time, but this shows more of her right mind because she spent time and hours to do what she did by leaving the baby, bagging the baby up, bagging the body up, and then going to class. Her intent it's becoming more prevalent that she tried to hide the pregnancy, the Google searches and things like that. That's why when investigators make these arrests, the arrest doesn't necessarily mean the case is over. And you want to develop more evidence, more information, and they have. So it's not coming back to just a stillborn death. It seems to be more, and kind of nefarious if you look at it. I mean, how do you just not have that feeling that you just did if you're saying it was a stillborn at one point, now you know it's alive, just walking away and then just going. And that's something that it shocks the conscience when you can think about somebody who could walk away from a baby they just had, whether it was stillborn or not.
It's shocking, because then the idea too of I think of more evidence when you think of an intent, allegedly taking this baby and wrapping it in a trash bag and then cleaning up what was ever in the room, including putting the placenta in a Ziploc bag. And in some of these cases, and I know we've talked about some of the cases you've responded to in the past where you have someone who might give birth in these types of situations, but to see the work it appears that she put in, even for her at this time, like she's still recovering, but she's clearly, if all of this is true, I mean, she put a lot of effort into hiding this body and trying to clean up something, and apparently the roommates were able to find it, but there was, at least it seems like there's enough steps there that you could say that she's admitted to that kind of adds into the charges she's already facing, even whether or not it comes down to, whether this is a manslaughter or a murder case eventually.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And that, that's why everyone's like, oh, she was not of her right mind, but she was in the right mind to get a bag. Not only a bag, but separate the placenta, put it in another bag. So these are things, she thought this was a thoroughly thought out way. The only thing she didn't do was dispose of the body, which is surprisingly so that she didn't even attempt that. She just thought she could go back and do it and go back and take care of it. Because you can't just leave a body sitting in your closet and thinking you have to eventually figure out how to get to remove the body. Like everything else is a little easier, but when you're talking about a body, whether it's an infant, a baby, or an adult, there's a little more, she's probably planning on where to put the body at the end of it. Because you can just put it into the garbage disposal or garbage can, because then, that's another issue. But, this is someone who, good, and bad, or indifferent, she thought it out. She thought about how to hide it. She thought about removing the body, at least separating everything she needed to do, cleaning up. This isn't a person who just had a postpartum moment. I mean, this is thorough. And not only that, she falls asleep, then she goes to class like it was another day.
Well, and two, I think of, even if the argument is that she, based off the medical event that she has in giving birth, that she wasn't in the right state of mind, there are images that apparently law enforcement have of pictures that she took when she was in labor, which is, I need some more information on that, but then they're deleted. First off, because I think many people might think, oh, I'm going to delete these pictures from my phone. They're gone forever. But law enforcement is able to find those often when even text messages, and in this case, pictures are deleted from a phone. The old saying that like things aren't gone forever, it appears to be true here.
No, that's one thing because the device, you still have the cloud. You still think, the cloud is another server. So you can just get removed from there, but it's never actually removed anywhere. That's the thing. I don't think people understand that these are like fingerprints now because they don't, and you could kind of smudge, but the reality is somewhere along the line, there's going to be some mistake. And this is the one thing she took off the phone. But even if the fact is she's taking photos while she's in labor is even more surprising. Because if you're going through labor, again, not being a parent, a mother in that sense, and having going through pregnancy, but that takes some either strong will to do that or something else. Because I mean, you're going through a major moment in your life, and you're still taking photos. So, and then you had the wherewithal to try to delete the photos because now you realize you shouldn't have done it. But the one thing about forensic computer science and all, you can destroy the computers now, but they're out there now. There's so many, once you delete it, it's still in that cloud area. It's still available for law enforcement to utilize it. In this case, we want to do what's right. I think investigators realize police want to do what's right. But justice is arbitrary in certain ways, but this is something you want to do it right. The baby who is dead needs a spokesperson, and the spokespeople are the police, and that's what we talk about when we talk about in deaths, no matter what it is. And we are the truth finders in the sense that's what we're looking to do. And they're trying to find out the truth because apparently Laken is not telling you everything. And that's why all the pieces of the puzzle are being put together to determine this pregnancy was hidden. Not only was pregnancy hidden, the birth was hidden to a point where you left the body, but you were able to thoroughly think out to move the placenta, remove it, put it in another bag, clean up the area, and go on with your day. And that's what we know investigators want to do. The autopsy will eventually, hopefully, determine something because that shows that baby was, and that's a difficulty when it comes to babies. How much is that autopsy going to tell you that the baby was born alive? And that's what we're looking to do. And that's what hopefully, with the autopsy, will come from that.
And I think of her roommates as well who were there, and to be a young person coming across that scene, I'm sure they are, to think of what they're going through, but also the information they're able to give of they heard some sound around 4:00 in the morning when Laken Snelling says she gave birth. How do those accounts help this investigation, and what can you take away from what we know that the roommates were able to find in that room?
So you have a timeline. They're giving you a timeline area. You compare it to the timeline that Laken's given you about the birthing and all of that. So you compare and contrast. And so you're looking for information to refute or confirm what's going on. The roommates are saying they heard noises for an hour. So if you have noises for an hour, okay, we have 4 to 5. So we have this. Now we have to figure out where her timeline is in comparison to what they heard. And that's where you can find out if she's not telling you the truth and she's lying. That's where the evidence comes into play. Like now the timeline's been established. Now we go back and see what evidence supports what she says or refutes what she says.
When you look at the charges she's facing, I mean, at this point, it seems, it always seems in these cases, because we haven't heard her side of the story yet. They waived the preliminary hearing. But it feels like there's, at least for the charges that they have right now, that there's a pretty strong case against her. How does it, what do you expect happens next? Clearly there's going to be a district attorney deciding whether or not, once we learn the cause of death, of what charges go forward. But if she doesn't have a criminal record, typically how do these cases play out now going forward? She was able to be released on bond, no criminal record, but then now it's like you're starting to hear some more details, and it's just incredibly disturbing.
And that's one thing, the police can forward that information to the prosecutor's office. They have enough for the arrests that they've made already for disposing of body, tampering physical evidence, that they have. We're going to bring the police, the investigator is going to bring that information to the prosecutor, or in turn, maybe the prosecutor is still working with them and still involved, and they'll determine based on the totality of circumstances whether to up the charges to a homicide, criminally negligent, or a murder. And it's really based on what the investigators do and what the prosecutor thinks that they can prove. And it comes back to, when I talk about this beyond a reasonable doubt, do they have a case to show that Laken did kill this child beyond a reasonable doubt? And that's what they're trying to do. And that's why we can give you all the information. The probable cause gets you there. You made the arrest. If we make the arrest for that, the prosecution then believes thereby that they maybe have enough. Because I guarantee you they have to be working hand in hand to some extent. It's not just where the prosecutor and the detectives are just doing their own thing. They're working together on this. And if they gather enough evidence, the prosecutor is then going to determine whether or not that evidence will then be able to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in court. So then they may up the charges to a homicide type charge, either criminally negligent or murder.
I think about too, as far as the evidence at this point, there's the digital footprint that's coming in. You have some statements that she has made to police and doctors, statements that the roommates have made, kind of giving the timeline, but there's a major scientific part of this. And I think of a defense attorney who is probably going to be looking through how the evidence was collected and looking for anything that could raise doubt or suspicion. How do you prepare as an investigator? What's going through your mind as you're collecting that evidence? Especially, this is not the type of case that I'm sure Lexington, Kentucky police are coming upon on a regular basis. How do you collect that evidence to try and make sure that there's nothing that could be challenged in court that would be a major win for the defense?
Well, that's why with the prosecutor, if they're working hand in hand, the prosecutors are already looking at how they've gathered the evidence. Will that be substantial or be able to be sustained in a hearing or a trial? So, but as a detective, you want to make sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. You get the search warrants while you can, which they've done. They got the search warrants for the phone. They got the search warrants for her Google searches. Nothing was done out of turn because you don't want that evidence to be suppressed, because that's what we're looking to do. We want to present the best possible case, and that comes down to it. And if, let's say, there's a turn in the investigation and it's something that we didn't want to happen, if it's not documented. That's what it comes down to. Documentation is key. Defense attorneys go after cases by documentation. Officers, their testimony in general, their grand jury testimony, to any hearing testimony. So they're going to challenge everything, and that's within the right of the criminal justice system. It's now, but as an investigator, you want to make sure what you do is ironclad, that it would be introduced to court. It will not get suppressed. So you do it the right way. Subpoenas, search warrants, everything you want to do correctly on every level.
Yeah, and we'll see how this one plays out. A lot of new information coming in, and yet still so many questions. Retired NYPD Detective David Sarney, it's always great to have you on Law&Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you much, and stay safe.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law&Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.